for each and every component you have an action, right?
Yeah.
Like, so enter. Let's say my keyword is enter. What do you mean by enter? Means there is a text box you need to enter. Like what I do is that, but enter is common thing for any text box, whatever may be the text box. Of course, we discuss in Selenium also. Uh,
Yeah.
it takes almost 2 classes, I think. So enter, if I use the keyword enter, that will take 2 parameters. What is the component and what is the value to be entered. So automatically when I call keyword enter, so means you are designing a generic framework with certain keywords. So even though your project change, your application change, your functionality change, the code will not change. Once you design your keyword framework effectively, the same keyword framework can be applied for any project. Only thing you need to change is the object repository. We said no, we are using some properties called object properties in order to identify so-called in Selenium element locators. If you
Yeah.
just change the element locators and the data to be uh, employed to the application, the same keyword framework holds good for all the projects. For all the projects. Once you design your automation test framework using keyword driven, so it can be applied for all the projects. So that is the beauty. Means you are not writing a method for a functionality. You are writing a method for a particular activity, for an action. So each and every project got same actions. Whenever there is a button in project A, you click. Project B also you will click. But only thing you need to do is that, so on which button you need to click.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
So we do 1 or 2 test cases by designing the whole keyword framework from the scratch. The
Okay.
launched sessions are all frameworks. We do data-driven framework, we do keyword-driven framework, we do functional-driven framework, and we do page object model framework also.
Okay. Okay. So it was just an ISTV question. So just going through the video, but I couldn't able to understand much. Just,
Oh,
but, okay. Well,
hi, hi Jaideep. Is Stephen in, right? So yesterday we have discussed like what are the object-oriented principles and what principles have been supported by Java and what extent it is going to support and when you can call a programming language object-oriented and all, right? As part of that, we have discussed what is abstraction and encapsulation, and we have discussed the inheritance also. Now, and we just introduced so what is polymorphism, right? Polymorphism is like existing in many forms. So polymorphism will be realized in Java using 2 things like overloading and then overriding. Yesterday we have seen what is overloading and how overloading can be achieved. So today we discuss something about overriding. So overriding means if you see overloading you are doing with a method, overriding also you are doing with a method. But the difference is in overloading you write a method, you write n number of methods with the same name in the same class. But how those methods are differ? Those methods are differed either by number of parameters or type of parameters. But what is overriding? In overriding, you write the method for more than one time, of course, but you won't change the number of parameters, you won't change the type of parameters, you won't change the return type. The signature is as it is, 100% the same. But you write one method in base class, another method in derived class. So that is what overriding means. Overriding means, so as per the definition what we have discussed yesterday, overriding is like if a method was declared both in base class and derived class with the same signature. Signature in the sense the header of the method is same, like same signature means the method name, the parameters type, the parameter number, and the return type, everything is same. That is called signature is same. Then the base class method is said to be overridden. So why? What's the use? Because every time software, because we are in a dynamic field, like computer engineering today will be, tomorrow will be updated very advancedly. Whatever the feature that is existing today will be outdated. You need to extend the feature of that particular functionality. How do you do? By extending it. Overriding means by again redefining the same functionality with a new feature. That is what overriding. Let's say we realize with an example how overriding will be there. Just create your class. What is that we are talking about? Overriding means method existing with the same signature for more than one time, but not in the same class, in base class and derived class. In base class and derived class. Normally, what is the main intention of inheritance? You remember yesterday's class, right? What is the main intention of inheritance? Stephen, what is the main intention of inheritance? I think everybody in, right?
Deriving a new class from existing class.
Yeah, because if you want to use a particular code or data once again, so in order to redefine it, what you can do is that you can take the features by extending from that class and you can make use of inheritance, right? So that is how you're establishing reusability. Why again I need to code? Why again I need to define the data? I can use the existing code, I can use the existing data for my purpose. So this is the main agenda of inheritance. But what we are saying, in the base class and derived class, I am writing the same function. The main agenda of inheritance is to reuse, but still what I'm saying, I'm writing the same method with same signature in base class as well as in the derived class. So means, what does it mean? The base class function was outdated. Going to redefine with a new functionality. But sometimes, even though your technology was updated, some inputs cannot be taken by the newly updated thing. Like it always want the previous version of, means you need the backward compatibility. So when you want backward compatibility, you are not supposed to disturb the existing functionality. You should make your functionality as it is and then you need to extend it. So means base class functionality is that which is existing. When you're extending it from the derived class and you're extending the feature, that it means you're updating, means you're not disturbing the existing. See, I'm writing a simple method called public void displays. Of course, this method doesn't serve any purpose in order to demonstrate. So I'll just simply write a printf statement, system.out.println. So I'm just writing here, this is base class method. This is base class method. Just only one method we have written. So, and now what I'm trying to do is that class derived extends base. Class derived extends base. Of course, base spelling is capital B. Here also I am writing the same method, public void display. For the time being, in order to understand, I am writing display 1 and system.out.println. This is derived class method. So is there any difference like in base class method and derived class method? Yes, right? The method name is different. Here it is display and here it is display 1, right? So we'll see why I wrote like this. I'll give a proper explanation to that. Now what I'm trying to do is that I'm creating an object of derived class, derived some object equals to new derived. Now I'm trying to access derived class method called display1, and I'm trying to access the base class method also because derived class is having the permission in order to access the base class. Suppose if I execute this program and observe the result, so which method was executed first? This is derived class method because you called the function display1 first. So display1 was executed, and even though you didn't created any object for base class, since derived class is derived class of base class, you can access this display method also using this derived class object. It was extended. This is we have seen in yesterday's class as part of inheritance. Now what I want to do is that I want to write the same display method. So the method signature is also the same now. So base class is having display method and derived class is also having the display method, and there is no single change in the signature of the method. Its access specifier is public, it's also public. Its return type is void, it's also void. Its method name is display, it's also display. It is not having any parameters, it is also not having any parameters. Means what I did is that I defined a method both in base class and derived class with the same signature. What happens we'll see now. Now which object I have created? I have created derived class object and calling display method. Display method. Which method will be executed? In previous case when I called display method, so the base class method was called, but now which class method was executed? Derived class method was executed. What we have given in the definition? So then the base class method is said to be overridden by whom? By derived class method. Means once it was updated, every time it exhibits the updated functionality only until and unless when it is specifically necessary for a particular constraint, then only it exhibits the base class property. As we discussed yesterday, like we have a plasma TV of worth $100 or $200, it doesn't matter. But what we need to do is that I want to play a black and white movie in my color plasma and 1 lakh rupee TV, but the video will be displayed only in black and white. It cannot be displayed in the color even though your method was updated. Because why? The original source is black and white. Whenever you have a mismatch, whenever there is no backward compatibility, the video cannot be displayed. But still you have backward compatibility because it is Java. The base class method will not be disturbed and you can extend the feature, existing feature, without disturbing the existing functionality in the derived class. That is what overriding. Overriding means you are redefining and not disturbing. You are redefining the feature, but you are not disturbing the existing feature. This is also being supported and this is also being supported. But this can be resolved at runtime. We don't know which method will be called. Which method will be called? We don't know. ob.display. Which method will be called? Whether this display method will be resolved at runtime. That is why it is called dynamic polymorphism. Is it clear? What is overriding?
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to discuss one more topic. So on the basic concept of Java for Selenium training, so called exception. What is exception? Like literally what is an exception? So in manual testing we came across two things like error, bug, defect, failure, right? We come across these words, right? Error, bug, defect, and then failure. And now we got a new word called exception. What is exception? Which was not expected, right? exception. So in the context of Java, what do you mean by exception is a runtime error. Exception is a runtime error. It's not compile time. It's a runtime error. What do you mean by runtime error? Because you think that everything goes fine and you execute the program, but unfortunately the program will not execute properly, leads to abnormal termination. So when it is leading to abnormal termination, that is what exception means. You never expected. Exception is unexpected error. It's a runtime unexpected situation is called exception. But what happens in this scenario? Normally there is a C programming, right? So somebody wrote a C program like this: int a, comma b, comma c, and they have taken data from the keyboard for a and for b. Don't bother about the syntax. This is C syntax. They have taken value of a and b. What they want to do is that they want to compute C equals to a by b. C equals to a by b. What do you mean by C equals to a by b? So just tell me the output when a equals to 10, b equals to 5. What is the output for C? There are three variables in, yeah, C will be 2, right? Now tell me, if I give a equals to 100 and b equals to 0, what happens? What is the output?
0.
How come? Denominator divide by 0. If numerator is 0, C will be 0, right? If denominator is 0, so what is the output? Infinite, right?
Yes.
Infinite. So where you can find infinite in a computer? Will you find? Can you tell me the value of infinite? No, right? What the computer processor will do? The processor will keep on searching for that value. Keep on searching for that value. But the value never found. So your system got stuck. The program will get abnormal termination. If it is a simple application, doesn't matter. If it is a serious application, if something goes wrong, like an exception, if the server shut down, so crores of rupees will be lost. So that is the main problem. You need to deal with the exceptions while coding the program, while developing the application. What Java is providing. So I'm not saying that Java is giving a appropriate solution and it is protecting from exceptions, but it is deviating from abnormal termination. Means it is giving. Suppose uh, you came to know that suddenly your power was not there. So your UPS is helping you a lot, right? So that whatever the work so far you have done, you'll be saving. So immediately your system does not shut down. You have some time, so you have some facility so that you can update your files, you can save your files, and you can go for a normal shutdown instead of a unexpected shutdown, right? That is what Java is providing through exception handling. So instead of stopping the program, instead of terminating the program abruptly, what the exception handling concept in Java is providing is like, so it is providing a way, it is providing a mechanism so that you can make your program terminate normally in abnormal condition also. That is what exception handling is doing. So how this exception handling can be achieved in Java? So you have 5 keywords which deals with these exceptions. First keyword is called try. So try is one keyword. Throw is another keyword. Catch is another keyword. Throws is another keyword. Finally. So in Java, you can implement or you can handle exceptions using these 5 keywords: try, throw, catch, throws, and then finally. So what this try, throw, catch, throws, finally will do? So we discuss. So try. So try is actually a block. So try is a block. Means whatever the statements you feel that there may be an exception at runtime. We don't know. Because compile time everything goes fine. We don't know. If I give the b value is an appropriate value, you never stop the program. Since I have given b value 0, that is the reason the program was get terminated. You're searching for a file was deleted. Means the processor keep on searching for the file, but the file never found, file not found exception. Means for each and every case, Java what they did, in JDK what they did is that they have a documented all the exceptions in java.lang API. So all the exceptions, almost all the exceptions are there, which were predefined. But still you can write your own exceptions also in your application according to the requirement. What this try is doing, in this try block, what you need to put all the code you suspect for the exception. Means I can write the code C equals to A plus B in try. C equals to A by B in try. Why? Because I suspect there may be a chance of getting exception if B value is 0. B value is 0. That is what try means. Try for exceptions. Means you are trying for finding the exceptions in your code, but you are not sure whether the exception may occur or may not occur. But whatever the statements that are vulnerable for getting an exception, you put all the statements in the try block. That is the main agenda of a try block. Okay, that is what try. And then what are the exceptions you have tried? You should catch. That will be thrown using a keyword called throw. Means suppose if this statement, if you are expecting an exception, you should write like this: throw new arithmetic exception. Means as I mentioned in Java, for every exception there is a predefined API. So what kind of exception you are getting here? You are getting arithmetic exception. So this will be handled by arithmetic exception class. So whatever the exceptions you are throwing, means you are throwing out, that should be handled. Where it can be handled? It can be handled in a block called catch. So in catch block, you need to write arithmetic exception handling mechanism. So if you want to educate the user, you can write a printf statement saying that why the program was stopped. So divide by 0 error. Means you are educating or you are writing some important information, you are documenting what kind of exception was this, why the control came to the catch block, because the exception occurred, control came to the catch block. So this concept can be better explained using a simple example. So I write here exception demo. See. So in this program, I want to use keyboard input so that I'm importing java dot remember scanner, java.util.scanner. Now I would like to take int a comma b comma c, or c equals to 0. Now I want to take the value of a from the keyboard and value of the b from the keyboard. How do you do? You just write an interaction statement like enter a value, of course. So how to take the a value? A equals to, you need to create object of scanner class, right? How do you create object of scanner class? Scanner sum s equals to new scanner of dot in. So how to read an integer value? In our previous session we have seen se dot int. The same thing will be applied for b. So you want to read the value of b. So you are instructing the user to enter b value. So that user will be entering b value. B equals to again se dot extint. Now what I want to do is that I want to perform division operation. Division operation. See what will happen like. So I am expecting an exception in, so C equals to A by B. System.out.println. The result is, so C value are displaying, okay. But try, you are just trying the exception. If exception is caught, you should throw whatever the exception you are finding, that should be handled in catch. In catch block, what I am telling, arithmetic exception. I'm creating an object for arithmetic exception class, and I'm educating user what is the reason for termination of the program. If you simply display AE, so you'll be getting what is the reason for abnormal termination of the program. This is what, so I just, suppose A value have given 10, B value have given 2. So there is no exception, right? So normally you'll be getting the value called 5. I will execute once again. See, the control never entered into the catch block. Why? Because there is no exception. When the control goes to the catch block, only if this particular part is having any exception. So now I'm giving value 10 and I'm giving the value B 0. Now see, now you are not getting the result 5. So when you are getting an exception of a particular statement, the rest of the code is considered as unreachable code. Means the program will not go for the next instructions. Since we have implemented exception handling in Java, so it is going to the catch block directly. How many number of statements, it doesn't matter. Directly whenever there is an exception, the control goes to the catch block. What is there in the catch block? In the catch block, you have asked to display what is the exception type. So what it is displaying, if I give 10 and 0, so if you see the output, it is telling that, so it is a divide by 0 error. It is a divide by 0 error. So how it could know? Because Java already defined certain exceptions and documented. So this exception was categorized as arithmetic exception. So that is the reason I said that catch arithmetic exception AE like. So whenever you're dealing with files and you're trying to open a file, or you're trying to open a file which is already open, or when you're trying to close a file which was not opened. So in such cases, what happens is that you'll be getting file not found exception. So there is something like, so when you want to disturb the process, you'll be getting interrupted exception. So when you are doing some IO operations, you'll be getting IO exception. Means in Java, there are certain exceptions already defined. What you can do is that you can make use of, but you can redefine your own exceptions also as per your application. So this exception will help you in order to not terminate the program abruptly, so that the program will not get terminated. In the catch block, what you can do is that you can do the necessary action. What is the necessary action? Means you can tell the user, what you can tell to the user? Please enter valid value for B. Then the user will understand what goes wrong, because you're asking the user to enter a valid option for B. Then you again, you take the value of B. B equals to C dot extend. Then you recompile the value. A equals C equals to A by B. Then you display the value of C. So this is how you can reroute program control whenever there is an exception. Whenever there is an exception. In C, there is no such activity, but in Java, we have something called exception handling. What? So in previous case, it was stopped because there is no exception handling. But now I written complete exception handling mechanism, enter value. So now I am entering 0. So now what happened? So divide by 0 error, please enter valid value for B. Suppose if I enter 4, now I'll be getting the value is 2. So this is how your program will be protected from abnormal termination. But some exceptions are like that. Anyway, whatever the mechanism you provide in catch block, they cannot withstand for that mechanism also. Anyway, they will stop. It is a severe exception or a serious exception. The program gets terminated. In such case, a serious operation should be done. Like suppose you opened a resource, you opened a file, suddenly there is an exception. But before terminating from the program, you want to make the file closed, you want to make the resource closed. So you want to clear the memory. So in that case, what you need to do, catch block also won't work. So there is something called finally. So we have said like there are 5 keywords: try, catch, throw, and finally. So what is finally? Even though there is an exception, even though there is no exception, finally block should be executed. After executing finally block, only the program gets terminated. That is the power of finally. So where you write finally, you need to write finally after the catch block. Finally, it should be executed. See, you won't get into the catch block if your input is correct, right? Means I am executing the program without exception. 10 and 5. Simply the program will terminate here. You are not going to catch, you are not going to final because there is no exception, no need to go for catch block or final. But finally block should go. Even though there is an exception, even though there is no exception, you should go to the finally block. Now second time what I will do, I will change the input. I'll give like 5, I'll give 0. What happens? See, so it is asking me, it entered to the catch block, but previous case it didn't enter to the catch block. Whenever there is an exception, it will enter into the catch block. But whenever there is exception or no exception, it definitely go to the finally block. Suppose if I'm giving value for B is 6, so the result is 0. And again, even though there is no exception also, it will enter into the finally block. So this is how Java is providing exception handling mechanism. The 3 important keywords are like, of course there are 5 keywords. So mostly what we'll be using is that try, catch, and then finally keyword. So till now, if you have any concerns or doubts, please let me know so that we can continue.
I think I need to hear once again. So just keep this one in the video and try it.
Okay.
Just,
Or just as a glance, I'll repeat it like, okay. See, we'll be writing program. Yeah, we'll be writing a program, but the program seems to be correct until and unless it encounter a real-time problem. Like there is a real-time one particular case where your program will execute like randomly. Like your program is correct. Let's say I have written a program in order to find out factorial of a number, right? So factorial is an integer, right? Factorial is an integer, right? Yeah. But my integer size in C programming is only 2 bytes, right? Only 2 bytes. If I take long, it will be 4 bytes. But if I want to calculate factorial of 1, I will get the value, 2, I will get the value, 3, I will get the value, 4, I will get the value. But what about factorial 7? Will you get the value? means you are, because the memory size is very less, means you don't predict as per the logic 100% correct. It is giving good output when you're testing for test data, but still in runtime for a particular case your program will fail. Like that, it is an example kind of thing. Like that, you may encounter many exceptions while you're executing your program. In real time, when you're executing an application, there is a chance that you may get unexpected error. It may be because of hardware, it may be because of some functionality, it may be because of some input, whatever may be the reason, but you'll be getting some exception. Whenever you're getting an exception, your application will abruptly terminate. But what developers will do, they will use a mechanism called exception handling, so which is done by using these keywords. So whatever the suspected code, what is the suspected code means? So which code you are suspecting that there is a chance that in this code some of the statements may raise an exception. Those statements will be placed into try block. That block indicates that, so this block is, there is a chance that you may get an exception. So only the purpose is that try block will identify the exception. Whatever the exceptions you have identified in the try block will be thrown away. If exception arise, if exception is not there, no issue. They will execute normally. If there is an exception, then only the control will go to the catch block. Suppose if I give A value 10 and B value 5, you happily you are getting the value 2. But if I am giving B value 0, then only the control is going to the catch block. What is catch? Catch is defining some exception handling mechanism. Whenever there is an exception in your program, so somebody should handle. So who is handling? Catch block is handling. What is the necessary action, or what are the necessary actions you need to take in order to get rid of that particular exception? So that measures will be incorporated here. So in the catch block. But sometimes what happens is that, so your handling mechanism also won't work. When this handling mechanism is not working, so the program again will leads to abnormal termination. If you don't want to terminate abnormally, you want to save something, you want to close a file, you want to release the memory, you want to release the IO. So such operations you need to do it an emergency, even though it is stopping by force. So in that case, what we need to use is that we need to use a block called finally block. Finally block is having a priority or an importance that even though there is an exception or not, you should execute finally, then only the program should terminate. It was designed in such a way that even in abnormal exception also, finally block will be get executed. Whatever the code you are taking as an emergency measure should be written in the finally block. This is what exception handling means. Of course, this will be used by developers. We don't use, just we use the name called exceptions. We use all the exception names. That is the reason I introduced exception handling also in Java training. But we don't write try, catch and all, but we make use of those things. We don't define any exception handling, but we make use of existing ones. So whenever I'm using some exception, so you shouldn't feel that it's a new topic. That is the reason we are discussing exception handling also as part of this Java training. Is it clear? Is so?
Yes.
Yeah. But still exception handling. So in one session is not enough. For Java developers, it is like a multiple sessions. But for us, one session is more than enough. But what is this throw? So far what we have discussed in the example is discussing about only one particular exception. But there is a chance that statement 1 may get arithmetic exception, statement 2 may get IO exception, statement 3 may get file not found exception, statement 4 may get SQL exception, statement 5 may get some other exception, statement 6 may get interrupted exception. Means there is a chance that each and every statement may get some exception. But will you want to write each and every statement in one try block? No. You can write all the statements in a single try block. Means what is the significance of try block? So try can handle, means try can, I can say identify multiple exceptions. Means let's say, understand, I'm just writing the skeleton. You wrote statement 1. So here there is a chance that you will get exception 1. Statement 2. Here also you have a chance that exception 2. Statement 3. Here also you have a chance that exception 3 may come. Means you finished. Like the statement 4, exception 4. But no need to write multiple try statements. But you can write, you have to write multiple catch statements. One catch statement can handle only one exception. Catch, exception 1, the corresponding handling mechanism. Catch, exception 2, the corresponding handling mechanism. This is how they write exception handling for multiple exceptions. But there is a replacement for this. If you use a word called throws, so throws is used to a list of exceptions thrown by a particular method. Let's say I have a method public void method. This method is containing multiple exceptions, multiple exceptions. So what I do is that I write one try and multiple catch blocks. No need. What I can do is that simply I use a word called throws exception 1, comma exception 2, comma exception 3, comma exception 4, like this I can write. So this is how the throws is nothing but throws represent a list of exceptions. So you can write avoiding try and catch when you are using throws exception. So what is the automatic handling mechanism that is available? It will take care. So throws exception 1, exception 2, exception 3, exception 4, you can write like this. This is what throws is. Finally, we know what is the significance of finally, we know. So finally is the most important block. Whether there is an exception in a program or there is no exception in a program, the compulsory executable block is finally block. So without executing finally block, the program will not terminate. So these are the things what you need to remember as part of exception handling. Be clear, Lizo and Jaideep?
Yes.
Yeah. But still we need some intensified but it comes. It is like, say, it's a kind of creating awareness. When we are using it, we come to know what is exact functionality is like. Because every Selenium program will throw some kind of exception. So what is that exception? Why it is throwing will be coming, discussing at the point of discussing that particular situation. But these 3-4 Java session is to make you aware that this concept is there in Java. This concept is there in Java. This is how this concept will be working. This is the main objective of conducting these sessions like. And apart from these, what you should know about Java is that you should know utilities, of course, which will not be discussed separately. What are the topics that are left over and not discussed separately? They'll be discussed as part of Selenium. Utilities you need to discuss. File handling you need to discuss. File handling you need to discuss. Database programming you need to discuss. So these are the things we discuss directly with Selenium. So utilities, file handling, database programming and all. We have something called strings and string methods. We discuss this also directly. Why? Because we take everything in a text, because all our, what you say, the exact word like, all our expected outcomes, what we say as part of a string, as part of a text. So what we do is that everything will take as a string. So what are the various strings? But string matching, how you do, string comparison, how you do, string length, how you will find. So what kind of manipulations can be done in a string? So all these things we need to discuss. Maybe we discuss these functions because this is important, because we need to match, we need to compare, so that we need or 15 to 20 minutes of session on string handling. So while we are discussing Selenium. Okay. So Jaideep, any doubts? Like, Jaideep, are you there?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
So are we ready for Selenium then? We can start
Yes,
Selenium
sir.
from the next session. Yes, right? So, okay. Today we'll see how to download the Selenium and then wind up the session. Today
Okay.
I'll show you how to download the Selenium and then we'll wind up the session. And what are the things you need to have before working with Selenium? Because, so just to remind, so Selenium is what kind of automation testing tool? It's completely web automation tool, right? It won't automate any window application. It is completely web automation tool. Means it deals with what? It deals with only browsers. It deals with browsers. So whatever the program you are writing using Selenium, every program will be executed on a browser. So your Selenium should interact with the browser, but there is no single browser, right? You have Internet Explorer, you have Safari, you have Mozilla Firefox, you have Google Chrome, you have Opera. Each and every browser got one particular interface so that you can connect your Selenium with that particular browser. So those interfaces you are calling it as a driver. Means how your browser will be, how your Selenium is going to drive the browser with certain API. So each and every browser got some APIs. So before working with Selenium, you need to download all your drivers. So where to download from? And the most important thing is that you need to download the Selenium first. So how do you download the Selenium? Doing this, just create your workspace. In workspace, you create a particular project. So my workspace where I have created like, so I created Selenium workspace. Let's say here now what I'm doing is that I'm creating one folder with name jars. My folder name is jars. Whatever I download, I put it in my jars folder. You also create one jars folder. Whatever the jar file you are going to download, everything, because at the end of the session you will be downloading from 13 to 15 jar files. So each and every jar file, make sure that it is present in your workspace under a folder called jars. Now, okay, after creating that particular folder, what you're trying to do is that you go to Selenium official website, seleniumhq.org, seleniumhq.org, and click on the downloads tab. So you find the Selenium standalone server. So download version 3.3.1. Just click on that. So where I want to store this jar file, I want to store in my jars folder. I want to store in my jar. Similarly, you also create one jars folder in your workspace and store the Selenium. This is how you need to download the Selenium. And if you see, but this Selenium won't open, cannot open any browser because it requires the drivers also. If you see, there is a driver which helps you to open Selenium program using Internet Explorer. This is Internet Explorer IE driver. If your system is 64-bit, download 64. If your system is 32-bit driver, you need to download this one. And make sure that this driver is also present in the same jars folder. And if you see, if we come down, so these are the drivers. So Mozilla Firefox is using Gecko driver. Google Chrome is having its own driver. Opera driver. Means these are the various drivers for various browsers. You need to download all these drivers and make sure that that is present in the jars file. This is what you need to do before we start with the Selenium program. Is it clear, right? Simple thing. In your workspace, create a folder called jars. Go to seleniumhq.org and go to the downloads tab and download your Selenium standalone server and download all the browser drivers. That's it. That's it. Today's task you need to do, so that I'll help you in how to create a Selenium program with the help of all these jar files. Is it okay, Saidip? Of course, we'll see the first 5 minutes also, since the Stephen was not available today. We'll download once again and do that same thing.
Okay.
Okay. Have a nice day, Richo.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I already half the day. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jaideep. Good night.
Yeah, thank you, sir.